So you don't believe enough. You need to believe even harder. You didn't get what you want when you prayed, so next time just believe even harder than that. How many times have you heard this sentence? I've heard them a lot of time when I traveled around the world and gave seminars to all sorts of people all over the places. This is what they said to me. We don't believe enough. And the hidden assumption of this sentence is that faith is something that you have no proof about this issue. This is very wrong. This is not what the Hebrew nation is thinking. And let me explain a bit. When Moses came to the Hebrew nation that was inside Egypt as slaves 400 years after Abraham, our forefather, and he came to a very clever place. He came to the Egyptians that built up the pyramids, that know exactly all the skies and stars and everything else, how it's working. He came and said, let my people go. Now this part, the Hebrew nation really believed him. But when he said also that God spoke with him, God who created this world, God who managed to do this wonderful thing that we are inside, the environment that we're inside. And Moses told them, God spoke with me, God is speaking with someone, with a man. They didn't believe him. And this is one of the things that we have in our tradition. And I'm holding here a book that was written down 800 years ago about a story that happened 400 years before that. So we're speaking about 1200 years ago of all the investigations of the Hebrew faith. And it's written down like that. It was written down in Arabic, but it was translated a few times to Hebrew. Today you can find it also in English. When Moses came to Pharaoh and all of his sages, and the Hebrew people, they were investigating him. They had a lot of questions. They had a dilemma to believe him in this weird thing that he says that God who created this world is speaking with people in this world. And this doubt was inside the Hebrew nation and the sages until Mount Sinai, when God spoke with all of the Hebrew nation and gave them the Ten Commandments. And from here we learn two things. First of all, that the hidden assumption, I will say, of the old Hebrew nation, that you can believe in something. The word faith is only after you're investigating, learning, searching and understanding, and you can put it in your logical patterns. And the second thing that we learn here, that the Hebrew nation is not trying to answer one of the four fundamental questions that we don't have answers in our logical patterns. One of the questions, for example, Immanuel Kant, the philosophical Immanuel Kant is already telling those four questions. One of them, for example, is if we're trying to investigate logically, okay, with the science that we have today, with everything that we know, if the world was created or the world was from far away, always was in this area, in a logic way, you don't have an answer. And the same thing, if you want to ask yourself in a logic way, is God exist or God is not exist? You don't have an answer. And the Hebrew nation is not dealing with this question. If this is your question, God exists or not, so a faith to believe that God does exist in the logical pattern that we have today, in the logical way that we have, or the tools that we have today, the answer is that your faith is something that you have no proof for it. But if your question is something else, and this is the Hebrew nation question, did God spoke with men or not? Our answer that He spoke with us, He spoke with the Hebrew nation. We will explain this later on. This is the question, and faith is something that you can prove, you can understand. What are the tools that you're trying to investigate and to understand all your dilemmas, all your questions? This is something that we will answer in our next video. Bye.